Hello and welcome to this Coaching Veterans presentation on the PACT Act, what it is, what it covers, and the presumptive conditions as of April 2025. I'm Paul Bunn with Veterans Outreach Ministries. Today, we will walk through the full list of illnesses that the VA automatically presumes to be caused by toxic exposure for eligible veterans. We'll also explain which locations and dates qualify, how the VA evaluates these claims, and how this law expands your rights to health care and compensation. By the end of this training, you'll understand exactly how the PACT Act protects veterans exposed to burn pits, airborne toxins, radiation, herbicides, contaminated water, and other hazardous environments. The PACT Act, officially the Sergeant First Class Heath Robinson Honoring Our Promise to Address Comprehensive Toxics Act, is the largest expansion of veteran health care in history. It ensures that veterans exposed to toxic environments no longer need to prove the cause of their illness. The law states that if you served in certain locations during certain time periods and have a listed condition, the VA must automatically assume your disability was caused by service. This removes the burden of proving exposure and recognizes the long-term health effects caused by modern warfare and environmental hazards. The PACT Act establishes several types of presumptive eligibility. The first category includes time-based presumptives, meaning conditions that qualify when diagnosed within certain periods after separation. These include anemia, arteriosclerosis, arthritis, atrophy of muscles, brain hemorrhage, brain thrombosis, cardiovascular renal disease, including hypertension, cirrhosis of the liver, Cushing's syndrome, diabetes mellitus, endocarditis, endocrinopathies, epilepsy, Hansen's disease, Hodgkin's disease, leukemia, liver disease, myocarditis, myelitis, nephritis, organic nervous conditions, osteitis deformans, osteomalacia, Pott's disease, primary anemia, psychosis, purpura, Raynaud's disease, scleroderma, syringomyelia, and tumors of the brain or spinal cord when they appear within 1 year of separation. Multiple sclerosis qualifies if diagnosed within 7 years, tuberculosis and Hansen's disease within 3 years, and ALS qualifies at any time after service. Another major category involves Agent Orange and herbicide exposure. Conditions presumptively connected to herbicides now include chlorachin, soft tissue sarcoma, Hodgkin's disease, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, porphyria cutanea tarda, multiple myeloma, respiratory cancers, prostate cancer, AL amyloidosis, ischemic heart disease, Parkinson's disease, Parkinsonism, chronic B-cell leukemias, bladder cancer, hypothyroidism, hypertension, and monoclonal gammopathy of undetermined significance, MGUS. These conditions are automatically presumed if the veteran served in Vietnam, Thailand, Laos, Cambodia, Guam, American Samoa, the territorial waters of these locations, Johnston Atoll, or within 12 nautical miles of Vietnam during the qualifying time frame. The PACT Act also expands presumptives for Gulf War veterans. Veterans who served in the Southwest Asia Theater or surrounding regions after August 2, 1990, qualify for conditions that include chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia, irritable bowel syndrome, and any medically unexplained chronic multisymptom illness lasting 6 months or more. Veterans may also qualify for undiagnosed illness symptoms such as fatigue, skin symptoms, headaches, muscle pain, joint pain, neurological symptoms, neuropsychological symptoms, respiratory symptoms, sleep disturbances, gastrointestinal symptoms, cardiovascular symptoms, abnormal weight loss, and menstrual disorders. Another group of presumptives applies to infectious diseases associated with Southwest Asia or Afghanistan service. These include brucellosis, Campylobacter jejuni, Q fever, non-typhoid salmonella, Shigella, West Nile virus, and malaria when manifesting within 1 year of separation. Tuberculosis and visceral leishmaniasis qualify whenever diagnosed after service. These diseases are recognized because they are known to be carried in the regions where Gulf War and post-9/11 veterans served. The PACT Act also adds a large group of aerodigestive and rare respiratory cancers for veterans who served in Southwest Asia since 1990 or in Afghanistan, Djibouti, Syria, or Uzbekistan. These cancers include squamous cell carcinoma of the larynx, squamous cell carcinoma of the trachea, adenocarcinoma of the trachea, salivary gland type tumors of the trachea, adenosquamous carcinoma of the lung, large cell carcinoma of the lung, salivary gland type tumors of the lung, sarcomatoid carcinoma of the lung, and typical and atypical carcinoid tumors of the lung. A major section of the PACT Act adds burn pit and airborne hazard presumptive conditions, including brain cancer, gastrointestinal cancer of any type, glioblastoma, head cancer of any type, kidney cancer, lymphatic cancers of any type, lymphoma, melanoma, neck cancers, pancreatic cancer, reproductive cancers of any type, respiratory cancers of any type, and a wide list of chronic respiratory diseases. Respiratory presumptives include asthma diagnosed after service, chronic bronchitis, COPD, chronic rhinitis, chronic sinusitis, constrictive bronchiolitis, obliterative bronchiolitis, emphysema, granulomatous disease, interstitial lung disease, pleuritis, pulmonary fibrosis, and sarcoidosis. The PACT Act preserves existing presumptions for mustard gas and lewisite exposure, which include chronic conjunctivitis, keratitis, corneal opacities, scar formation, nasopharyngeal cancers, laryngeal cancer, lung cancer, chronic bronchitis, chronic laryngitis, emphysema, asthma, COPD, and acute non-lymphocytic leukemia. Veterans exposed to full-body mustard gas or lewisite during training or testing qualify for these presumptives. The PACT Act also reinforces the long-standing presumptions for radiation-exposed veterans. Veterans involved in nuclear testing, occupation of Hiroshima or Nagasaki, or cleanup operations may qualify for automatic service connection for cancers, including all forms of leukemia except chronic lymphocytic leukemia, thyroid cancer, breast cancer, pharynx cancer, esophageal cancer, stomach cancer, small or large intestine cancer, pancreatic cancer, bile duct cancer, gallbladder cancer, urinary tract cancer, brain cancer, bone cancer, lung cancer, colon cancer, ovarian cancer, liver cancer, except when caused by cirrhosis or hepatitis B, bronchiolo-alveolar carcinoma, multiple myeloma, and lymphomas other than Hodgkin's disease. These cancers are recognized because radiation exposure is strongly linked to DNA damage that may take decades to manifest. The Act also maintains presumptions for former prisoners of war, recognizing the long-term impact of starvation, malnutrition, trauma, and severe physical hardship. Presumptive illnesses include psychosis, anxiety states, depressive neuroses, frostbite residuals, post-traumatic osteoarthritis, heart disease, hypertensive vascular disease, stroke and its long-term effects, irritable bowel syndrome, peptic ulcer disease, peripheral neuropathy, cirrhosis of the liver, and osteoporosis. Additional conditions such as beriberi, chronic dysentery, helminthiasis, pellagra, avitaminosis, and other nutritional deficiencies apply when captivity lasted 30 days or more. Another major part of the PACT Act includes the presumptive conditions related to tropical diseases, particularly important for veterans who served in regions where certain infections are endemic. These diseases include amoebiasis, cholera, dysentery, filariasis, leishmaniasis, malaria, plague, schistosomiasis, yellow fever, and related parasitic or infectious conditions. Depending on the disease, symptoms may appear within months or years after service, and the VA recognizes their connection to service when veterans served in affected areas. The Act also outlines rules for COVID-19 presumptive periods for veterans who separated between March 1, 2020 and January 5, 2024, Veterans who developed complications, chronic respiratory symptoms, or related long-term conditions after infection may qualify more easily for service connection when the illness occurred during qualifying service, VA medical care, or under protected timelines. The purpose of this section is to ensure that veterans affected by the pandemic are not left behind in claims involving long-term respiratory or cardiovascular impairment. Another important element of the PACT Act is that it expands health care eligibility even for veterans who do not yet have a service-connected disability. Toxic exposed veterans are now eligible for prioritized VA healthcare enrollment lines, meaning you can receive medical evaluation, screening, and ongoing care without waiting for a disability claim decision. This includes veterans exposed to burn pits, radiation, contaminated water, industrial chemicals, and herbicides across multiple eras of service. Under the PACT Act, the VA is also required to provide toxic exposure screenings to every veteran enrolled in VA healthcare. These screenings ask about potential exposure sources such as burn pits, airborne hazards, radiation, chemical spills, contaminated water, or occupational exposures. These screenings help ensure that veterans receive timely follow-up, testing, and early intervention for conditions known to emerge years after exposure. The PACT Act also strengthens survivor benefits. If a veteran passed away from a condition now recognized as presumptive, surviving spouses and dependents may qualify for dependency and indemnity compensation, DIC, even if the veteran was never service-connected during their lifetime. Survivors can file new claims or request reevaluations of prior denials under the updated presumptive rules. As part of its reforms, the Act also requires the VA to improve claim processing, expand research into toxic exposure, and continuously evaluate new scientific evidence to determine whether additional illnesses should be added to the presumptive list. This means the PACT Act is not static. Future illnesses may be added, and the VA is obligated to adjust as medical science progresses. Veterans filing under the PACT Act should gather documentation such as service records showing locations and dates of deployment, medical diagnosis confirming a listed presumptive condition, and any treatment notes that show chronic symptoms or long-term residuals. Although exposure no longer needs to be proven, the VA still requires a current diagnosis and evidence of severity when assigning rating percentages. Lay statements from family members, caregivers, or co-workers can further support claims by describing visible symptoms and functional limitations. The PACT Act exists because countless veterans served in environments that placed them at risk for lifelong illnesses that were once difficult to prove. If you served in a qualifying location or era, or believe your condition is tied to toxic exposure, you may now qualify for automatic service connection without needing to prove how your exposure occurred. Always be open about your symptoms, provide strong medical documentation, and file a claim as soon as you can so the VA can properly evaluate your condition. Thank you for joining this Coaching Veterans training on the PACT Act and the full list of presumptive conditions. Remember, these protections were created to help you. If you need support filing your claim or understanding your eligibility, visit www.vetcenters.org or call 1-888-330-1942. You've served your country. Now it's our turn to serve you.